Hey everyone, welcome to the Way of Champions podcast this week. It's John, and this is a special episode because we are joined this week by Brad Cole, the associate head coach, and Rob Dow, the head coach of the University of Vermont Catamounts men's soccer team, the 2024 national champions. And as I've said on the show many times before, I used to coach at UVM. I have this special place in my heart for the school, and watching the team go on this NCAA run and win the whole thing was, I mean, it was one of my most incredible moments of the past year. And so I'm so excited to be joined by Rob and Brad to talk about their program and their season and hopefully teach you all something and give you some ideas so that you can implement some of the things that Vermont has done. Now, just a little bit about our guests. Rob Dow, 2024 was his eighth year as the head coach of UVM, 13th overall. He was the associate head coach and the assistant there. Um, that year, this past year, they won their second America East Championship and, of course, the national championship. In 8 seasons, he's won nearly 100 games, has had a winning season every year since 2017. Um, Before UVM, he was the assistant coach at Southern New Hampshire, and before that, the head coach at Dean College. Um, and in UVM soccer now has under Rob has made four straight NCAA appearances, including some quarterfinals, including a heartbreaking loss a couple years ago to Syracuse, who went on to win the national championship. And so this season was really special with their belief. We'll talk about that. Now he's joined again today by Brad Cole. Brad is the associate head coach. Brad played at UVM after my time, sadly, and then embarked on his coaching journey there. Then worked in the Ivy League and out here on the West Coast at University of Portland before returning to UVM in 2023. And so, in our discussion today, we're going to talk about the program. We're going to talk about how they work together as coaches. We're going to talk about what a special thing this was and how the changing nature of college sports, at least in soccer, is allowing mid-majors to be three of the four Final Four teams and what that might look like for the future. So this is going to be a great episode. Now, we couldn't put this on without our friends at Sprocket Sports. As you know, Sprocket has supported this podcast for the last couple of years. Amazing people, amazing product. If you need a unbelievable website and registration tool and communication tool all under one platform, if you want the best customer service and the easiest to use platform, sprocketsports.com. Check them out. Tell them you heard about them on the Way of Champions podcast because these are great people doing great things. And in all my years working in youth sports, it's the best system I ever got to use. And that's why I'm so glad they're a sponsor. And then also our great friends at Patreon, the people who every month make a small donation to help us put out this podcast. And those Patreon members are about to get access to our whole back end of our website. So if you want access to all of our courses, parenting courses, coaching courses, all that sort of stuff, go to patreon.com/Way of Champions and become a supporter. And it helps us put this out every single month. Okay. Um, Last little piece, if you are interested in a bulk book order, Champion Sports Parent, our newest book, The Champion Teammate, which is being used by some of the top college programs and high school programs in the country, club programs in the country. If you're interested in a bulk order, just email me, John, JOHN, at changingthegameproject.com. If you just want a couple of books, you can always go to Amazon and grab them there. But these are great tools. Right? Great tools for you to become a better coach and help your team become better leaders, better competitors, and better culture, better bond. Okay? But for now, get ready, get set. Rob Dow, Brad Cole, Vermont men's soccer, the 2024 national champions. Enjoy, everyone. Rob and Brad, it's an honor to have you guys on, and congratulations again. It's just amazing.
John, thanks for having us. We're always excited to talk about and remember the national championship win. So thanks for having us.
Well, you've
Thanks,
done
John.
yeah, you've done something special when the city of Burlington throws you an outdoor parade in January. So I know you got that coming up this weekend, right?
Vermonters have a different level of toughness in the wintertime, that's for sure. It's supposed to be the warmest day of the week, but it's a high of like 26 or 27.
I mean, that's balmy for January in Burlington for sure. I don't want to. I remember when I worked there and depending on the kid we were recruiting, if they were from like Florida, we're like, don't bring them in January. Bring them in the fall when it's green and beautiful. Awesome. Well, guys, I mean, there's so many places to start here, but it was so amazing to watch the NCAA run this year and the success of your program. And I left there and my last season coaching was 2002. And still every year since, when Roy Patton finished up to Jesse, to you, Rob, like I check the scores every weekend. I'm still so connected to the place, and UVM and some of the kids that I coach there and people. What makes UVM special? Rob, I'll start with you and then Brad, I want to ask you because you played there.
Yeah, Brad's gonna touch on, some really intimate, things here. From my experience, I want to highlight a few different people and groups. One, I got to work for Jesse Cormier
Mhm.
for 5 years as his assistant and associate head coach. And what's unique is Jesse is a Vermonter, but he, played for the program, wore the
Mhm.
green and gold. And, you know, I think there's a lot of different things you can learn from your boss, as a young assistant, tactics, developing training sessions, office work, this type of thing. But one of the most valuable things that Jesse taught me is that Vermont soccer just means more to the state of Vermont.
Mhm.
And that like put me back into my seat a little bit and thinking like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that we have a few more people in our stands? What does that mean that we'll see kids at our camps, and to go down to Cary and later when we scored our equalizer in the final, I looked behind me because the NCAA does an amazing job of like feeling like you're at home
Mhm.
while in Cary, and all of our fans, those loyal fans who drove or flew or however they got to Cary, whether it's from Burlington, California, Canada, from Europe. As soon as we scored, like everyone's drink, and it was mostly beer, just like flew up in the air.
Yeah.
And it's just like these people were so, so passionate about the game, the result, the run, so proud as Vermonters that this team is representing them around the right values that they live by and the memories they were able to bring back um, with their classmates, teammates, back to Cary and just kind of like melt that all back together like they were in college. Um,
Yeah.
Literally with the beer flying in the air like they were in
Yeah.
college.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, man. I mean, I was during the game, I'm texting with guys in Ireland and people who are at the match and they're sending photos and I'm looking, every time they flash to the stands, I'm like, "Oh, I know that person or I know that person," and it was so incredible. I mean, Brad, for you, right? A guy who grew up in Burlington, played at UVM, um, left has been back. I mean, well, what did that feel like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was like a more than a childhood dream. Like I never dreamed of when as a kid, like winning the national championship on staff at UVM or playing, or
Yeah.
that wasn't what I envisioned. For me growing up, like it was always like, I was a ball boy at some games and would see the team train near like I literally lived across the street. So, I'd
Hmm.
walk my dog, the team would be training. And just, in this environment in Vermont, like you kind of, especially at that time, you really had access to UVM, and then maybe I'd go down to like a one Revs game a year, and that was my extent of like of soccer. So like the highest level to me growing up was UVM, and
Hmm.
it was always the dream to be there. I think there's a lot of people that are in a similar boat now. There's obviously so much more access to the
Hmm.
game, but the kids that grow up around here have a really close connection to our players and our staff, and we try to get in the community a lot. And it certainly is a bit of a dream come true. And I think we try really hard to make the team feel like a part of that community. And
Hmm.
one really kind of cool aspect to that, like we had our end of season meetings actually at the beginning of the spring, so like last week,
Hmm.
and we have a Marcel Papp. He's from Hungary. He scored the equalizer in the national title game. He came in August, so he's been in Vermont for 6 months, and he was like, it was crazy when I was home because I was actually itching to get back to Vermont because Vermont feels like home to me now. And he'd
Wow.
only been here 6 months, and so that's what we're trying to create, and the community aspect and environment is certainly pretty tight knit and pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, I think UVM athletics as a whole, right? Hockey is obviously the big thing in the winter, and basketball has done really well lately as well, and the connection to the community is such a huge thing. And I just remember when I worked there and they first, I mean, I was thinking about like you guys and Rob, you have that picture behind you of the field now, which I think then I don't know, I don't think it's called Archie Post anymore, but it used to be. Right. And I remember, two of my years we were in the America East final and it was daylight savings and we were practicing out on Archie Post with construction lights. Right. And we all said, man, if we had this facility here, this place could be really, really special. Right. Because there's no football, because the way the community's connected, because people care so much and our program is, involved out coaching in the clubs and doing camps and doing clinics and it is just amazing. So I mean, I watched like what does this championship mean? I mean, I watched the when you guys got off the airplane and pulled back up, even though I think it was Christmas break or they just got on break and there's still tons of people outside the gym.
Yeah, we flew back about midday, I think on Tuesday, and we had a quite a big crew of people traveling with us. So, um, but as soon as we get off, the plane and into our bus, we saw these police cars, line up and give us an escort back to campus and stop traffic at every signal light. People are getting out of their cars, clapping. Businesses kind of found out, came out, and it was like it felt very presidential, you know. But not quite. We get there, you're right. Like there's no one on campus, and we roll up to Patrick Gym, and there's 300 people there. Senator Leahy, and just to welcome back, and these are the people who weren't able to get, to Cary, North Carolina, but were equally excited and filled places along Church Street to watch the game. And one of the really cool things is like whether it's my electrician or it's a friend that's here in the community. At halftime, people were taking their dogs for a walk, and they went past one house, another house, and then through the whole neighborhood, and everyone had the game on.
Hmm. It'd be fun to see those like ESPN statistics of viewership in Vermont for that game, right? Like it was crazy. Yeah, and the West Coast. Let's kind of dive into the program here. And starting with you, Rob, like what are the things that drive you as a coach? Like when you became the head coach of UVM, took over for Jesse. Um, what were the values that you said, this is what I want a UVM soccer program to feel like every day. This is the type of player we want here. What are the things that get you out of bed every morning and say, I can't wait to go coach?
Want to win.
Yeah.
Want to win.
How so? Because
I do
everyone
want
wants to win. That makes you no
yeah.
different than New Hampshire or Denver or
Yeah.
Marshall.
Well, that takes a holistic developmental program that's focused on uh, presenting, an identity around values of being hardworking and disciplined and having a family environment. Um, and you extract that into some non-negotiables that we got to live by every single day, and these are just the standards. And then from there, it's really open, and it's this like self-exploration, guided discovery, leadership, developing, um, kind of environment where people can really feel like they can be themselves, but they're all so focused and dialed in and on the train towards winning at the highest level.
Mhm.
It's hard because it takes a little bit more work. I think like a lot of coaches have different philosophies, whether to simplify that or make it more complicated. Um, but like what an amazing opportunity I think us as coaches have in college to go through this developmental phase, critical phase for a young man's life between 18 and 22, 23, and be on this journey and develop relationships and um, help them connect and develop the confidence to advocate for themselves and give back to the community, for example. So it is a holistic developmental program. I live right next to the university, literally off East Ave. I'm always available. My son goes to every one of the games. My 2-month son will do the same.
Mhm.
We're immersed in it, and I know Brad is too. And Brad's got a unique story about how close he was, to the program growing up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Brad, for you, like, what is it? What is it about UVM that makes you different, that allows you to win on the weekend, that drives you, that gets you out of bed, that says that, that made you want to obviously come back to Vermont and coach there as well.
I mean, there's so many small motivations and little answers I could give, but I mean, the reason I came back to Vermont was because the team, was having a lot of success, and I was jealous that I wasn't able to be a part of it, and
Hmm.
I wanted to be a part of it, and I also wanted to take advantage of the momentum that Vermont was having soccer wise to win the national championship and elevate the game in the state. So I was like, who better than, like, I back myself to go and help get that done, and
Hmm.
I knew, like, Rob and I have a good working relationship. I knew it would be a good fit, like, what I
Yeah.
mean? So I had no hesitations from that standpoint. And it was just like there's clearly a lot of momentum with the USL2 stuff that was going on, and UVM doing really well. And yeah, as an alum, it was like, I need to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And a guy from Vermont. And then, you know, obviously, it was the right choice.
How about uh the belief part? And Rob, you can touch on this next, but first, Brad, like, you said, like, as a kid growing up, you never thought, okay, UVM, that's where we're going to go win the national championship or whatever. And so
Mm-hmm.
the discipline, the hard work, getting the right people, that's one thing, but it's also the belief when you step out there on the field and play a team with a big pedigree, that, like, no, it's Vermont. And so
Mm-hmm.
talk about how you get people over that, because yeah, I watched the video. One of the alums shared a video from preseason. I think you guys were at J Peak or something, and just talking to the players, and this was the goal all season long. It wasn't like, hey, we hope we win the conference, or it'd be nice to go to the NCAAs. It was like anything short of what we did would have felt like a disappointment. So building that belief. Talk about that because I think that's what so many coaches struggle with is like we can do all the right things, but when the pressure's on, do you really believe that we can get over the top here?
Yeah, I mean, I know that like the players that were returning had hosted um, a game, lost to Villanova, then hosted, then ended up losing to Syracuse. Then the next year we hosted and we ended up losing to West Virginia. So we'd been making runs. We'd been in and around the elite teams, and so the guys coming back knew we belonged there. And then I think for Rob and I, it was like, how can we create just higher expectations? Like I would say a lot in the tournament. Like we talk about, like, guys, we're not happy to be here. Like this, we're just not happy to be here. And like the reality is, like, I know some of the team. I listen to all the interviews about the other teams before we play them. These types of things, like we played other teams that were really, really good in the tournament. And some of the communication I was hearing was like their goal was to host a first round game, right? Or something. And that's really good. But like we certainly didn't want to have that mindset. We want to have the mindset of like, we are here to win anytime, any place, anywhere, against anybody with any style.
Mhm.
We don't care. Like it. So I think it goes a little back to what Rob was saying before. Like for us, winning is like it's not the same as how other teams categorize it. Like
Mhm.
we don't care how we feel during the game. We don't care what we have to sacrifice. Like we don't care what the style looks like. Like we're there to get a job done.
Mhm.
Um, and I think we try to empower and give confidence to the players that like we're going to put them in positions to be successful, and they're gonna be able to get the mission accomplished.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, it's really just about raising expectation levels, and being calm with that. Not like we weren't too rah rah about it. We're just like we need to get this done, and we have the confidence that we can.
Yeah, and Rob, one of my favorite quotes is Bill Walsh, the old football coach. He said, "Champions act like champions before they become champions." And that like says it to me is like you have to. Again, everyone wants to win on the weekend, but 6 months out, a year out, in the weight room at 6 a.m., whatever it is, and I like what Brad said. Like it doesn't matter who we play or how they play or how we need to play. Whatever it takes, we're willing to suffer to get it done.
Yeah. And then it's particularly in soccer right now, and I think all of college sports, there's such a focus on the individual's development to the pro game,
Hmm.
and it becomes, a very much a me first, um, team, all these individuals, NIL deal, pro contract, draft pick, all these different things. And one of the narratives which I really wanted us to change, especially over the last 2 years, was that is a byproduct of being of undertaking, committing to championship behaviors every single practice in the locker room, in the dorms. And so we stopped, like it's one of the things in soccer. It's like, oh, that was pro level, that pass was pro level. And we change it. That's championship level. That's a
Mm.
we before me perspective. And another thing I wanted to change specifically, and it hit me after we lost to Syracuse in 2022 in the round of eight, is that everyone was so happy about us and advancing to that point. That team was so talented.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Alex Nagy and Noah Egan. Yaniv Bazzini was on that team. Um, Yves Borey and Dan. I mean, so much talent and grit, you know, and we should have beat Syracuse. We should have
Mhm.
beat Syracuse. But everyone was like, "Oh, you carried this. No one believed you're as good as you were, and what a great season." And we had to shake the underdog
Mhm.
out of this program. And because when you lose like that, right, you could always come back and say, "Oh, we shouldn't have been there anyway." Well, the expectation is to win and want to win more than we didn't want the feeling of losing.
Mm.
And
I
that's what
love
we
I
mission
love it.
this
Yeah,
year.
keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was writing down there shaking the underdog out of the program because that's it. Like when you get on that first run, it's like we're just glad that we're here rather than No, we're here to make a difference and do things completely different.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
that's hard in itself. And one of the things that's super important is that, underly stated, is that be in the moment, take one game at a time. Our leadership stepped up and executed this. I think Zach Barrett said recently, like, to the team on his own, um, how do you eat an elephant? Sorry,
Yeah.
an elephant, right?
Yeah. One
One
bite at
bite
a
at a
time. Hmm.
one bite at a time.
Mm.
And we had this just one more. We got in the NCAA tournament, just focus on one more. Um,
Because all your games except the first were on the road, if I remember correctly, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's
7,000 miles traveled.
how many was it?
Over 7,000 miles traveled.
7,000 miles, right? And again, these things can become excuses, right? Oh, we got to go to Pittsburgh. Oh, we got to go here. Oh, we got to go there. But it's like, um, yeah, it's just amazing.
Uh,
Um,
another
yeah.
kind of running not joke, but like thing we would say before pretty much every one of those away games, like right as warm-ups were up, we'd look over and be like, it's another home game. We
Mhm.
got tons of fans here. It's just another home game. And obviously it wasn't. We had to travel a long way, but we tried to, like, we had such good support that we made it feel like a home game as best as
I mean,
possible.
Vermont's always done it. I gotta tell a quick funny story. I think in 2000 we were in the NCAA tournament. We played at Brown, and I grew up on Long Island, and so my parents took the ferry over and drove to Providence and came to watch the game. And I was warming up the goalkeeper, and again, Vermont fans travel really well, and there's tons of them in the stands. And I think they had all gone to Walmart and bought pots and pans, and they were banging them and cheering my name and everything. And after the game, my dear old mom comes up to me. She goes, "Wow, John, you must be such a great coach." And I go, "Mom, thanks so much, but why'd you say that?" And she goes, "Because they cheer for you now way more than when you played." So, so yeah, the fans are special. I mean, that's amazing. So this team this year, you had this belief, you had people coming back. I mean, I remember, I think they put up a graphic during the Final Four, where even though you had grad students and some transfers and older players, a lot of them had been there a number of years. And so there was this understanding of the program and the values and what it meant to be a UVM player. I mean, how much of a difference does that make in this transactional college sports environment we have now with the transfer portal and people are going and going and going and always looking for the next thing and because it's hard to keep a core of a team together for 4 years these days.
Retaining your players. You talk about
Yeah.
transaction relationship. Retaining your players becomes just as important as recruiting players. But unfortunately, we didn't have the ability to offer a transaction in an NIL, um, kind of exchange.
Yeah.
So we had to do it with culture, family, support. And if there is a social commentary, I think that's around this national championship. Um, it's that of having our young men feeling comfortable being vulnerable with each other.
Mm. Talk about vulnerability. I think this is such a huge word.
Yeah, we have kind of the center of our uh, vulnerability leadership. Um, I guess um, catalyst is our team impact player, Max White, who we
Mm.
adopted, who has a lifelong illness. I believe he's 14 years old right now, maybe around 13 to 14. Brad, you might be
Mm.
able to correct me. And this is a program through Tufts Medical Center. We adopted him 5.5 years ago. Um, Max White is such a courageous kid. Goes to Boston, gets these very difficult, complex surgeries to be able to continue to feel like a normal kid. And when you first come into our team and you want to watch us play or you'd be a part of a game, for a kid that can't play, physically, soccer a lot, you're on the bench. And the people that are on the bench are also the players that are injured for our team.
Hmm.
So the connection with Max White and our group started with um, sharing, kind of the difficult times that each of them are in.
Hmm.
And they didn't really want to talk about it, but it was a way to just get your mind off it. Hey, let's talk basketball. Let's talk football. What happened, around sport in the country, over the weekend. And that grew throughout our team. And Max's family is also very special, and they put him, with us on the road, and our connection with him triggers our team to just be okay with, um, you know, sharing that it's been a rough day, it's been a rough month, and all these things that go along with just being a person and not just a soccer player.
Or just like, right, Brad, like gratitude. Like, you know what? Even when I'm feeling bad because I'm not getting playing time or I'm injured, I'll be back in 2 weeks, or I'll be back in a month, or I'll be back next season. But there's that sort of gratitude of like, sometimes the things that we make as like it's this horrible thing in the grand scheme of things is really not that big a deal.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think like Max gives us a good perspective, you know what I mean, of like what matters the most, and just having like community is the most important thing, and the people that you're around. I think it goes back to player retention too, of like just bringing in good people that don't want to let each other down and want to be around each other and accomplish something together.
Hmm.
Um, that's critical, and there's so many lessons to be learned from all of that. And then I think too, like a big aspect of the year was like guys Rob was talking about that maybe were injured or redshirting, or maybe they just weren't playing as much as they want, right? Like every guy on our team wants to play 90 minutes.
Hmm.
But we have 17 guys that don't start every game. And so
Hmm.
like I think this year more than any other year, and more than any other team I've ever been a part of as a player or coach, like the 17 guys who weren't starting were the most bought in, by far, by
Yeah.
like not even close. And a day after the game, we have a training group of guys. The high minute guys will do like regeneration exercises, and then the guys who played less minutes will train.
Hmm.
That group, like they kept training better and better all season. One of the best ones was the day before the national championship, where they all could have been worried about, hey, what if I pick up an injury? What if I this? What if I that? And they were competing, having fun. Even the guy, like our guy who scored in the game winner, like he rolled his ankle in that session. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
still was still good to play the next day. Like guys were just so bought into the process, and just I think having Max around helps with that tremendously.
Yeah.
He gives a lot to us in that way.
And let me ask, because I think this is what you mentioned, this incredible buy-in across 28 players, or whatever your roster is so important and so incredible because like Max Kessel, the guy who scored the winner in the championship, right? He's coming off the bench, and I think, what did he have, 11 or 12 goals this year? I mean, 95% of programs in the country would love a guy who scores 11 goals. And you got him coming off the bench to change a game, and he had a couple others, I think, in the tournament as well. I mean, Rob, what do you do to keep getting that buy-in? Because it's very easy as a head coach to pay attention to the 11 or 14 that are really playing the most minutes, and you during the season you lose track of the other ones. And I remember Steve Kerr on this podcast telling us, like, you can never let someone rot on the bench. And Steve, as a coach, talks about, my whole career, even though he won 5 championships as a player, he goes, I was never a starter. So I pay so much attention to those guys on the bench, um, because they'll make or break it, like Brad said. So what do you do as a head coach to show them, hey, I see you, I value you, even though I can't show how much I value you necessarily by playing time?
Right. Value is the key word out of this. And other than in these training groups where a lot of our competition is born, so that no one feels like, they can settle in because our training group sessions are the most intense and most emotional. But it's bridged by communication and showing the value and being completely honest and being okay if it's not what someone wants to hear. But you have a job to do today. Your job, Nick Lockeran, I'm sorry you're injured, but you got to make sure that the team is positive and we can think in a next play mentality all throughout the match.
Mhm.
And this is one of the examples Brad's talking about. He delivered that. Or, you know, Marcel Papp, who started, in the semifinal. It's like, Marcel, your job is to come off the bench, and when we need to score, you're ready.
Mhm.
Max Kissel, similar. I think in the final we were trying to get Max Kissel on a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
so maybe we could have won it in extra time. It takes, um, I think what that does is like, okay, you told me, I don't agree with it. You explained why, but I can come to peace with that. I believe I'm better than what you're saying.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time is there's there's respect, for each other off the field, right? And then when you go into our um, meals or you go into the locker room, there's engagement. You're offering something from a connection standpoint or a tradition that we do that it's collectively participated by so that you're not in your own head. You're not delivering poor body language. This is some of the cancerous type activities you're talking about where you
Yeah.
lose, the guys who aren't playing. You lose them within the fabric of your team to help you win a championship. All of those pieces are so intentional. And I think talking about meals specifically is that some teams will hand out per diem, hey, go get dinner, go get lunch. We're going to have a pregame meal. That's going to be together. Otherwise, you're on your own. We eat every meal together. We sit down, we have it organized by table, and we break bread as a family. And that these opportunities and our phones are down. Brad organizes this trivia thing so that whoever, gets it right eats first or gets an extra dessert. But you can't use your phone in trivia.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm backtracking, but I'm still connecting to how do we create championship level involvement and chemistry off the field, and then give value and purpose and honesty and transparency about their roles on the field.
Mhm.
But you got to, as Coach Kerr said, you have to spend the time. Um, 80 20 rule, bottom 10%, top 10%.
Yeah.
You got to invest.
You got to invest. Brad, like Coach Kerr's assistant is a guy named Ron Adams, and we had him on, and he said a great assistant cements the cracks. Right? They look at what the head coach brings, and then they fill in the cracks. It could be, um, it could be tactically, it could be in training, it could be just in these conversations, it could be in showing in value. How do you cement the cracks, especially with sometimes these players who aren't getting the value that again they've been raised their whole life to be told the only way you're valued is if you get to play.
I think
Yeah, I
Brad's
mean,
the ship,
yeah.
but I'll let you talk, Brad.
What'd you say? Sorry.
I think you're the ship.
Uh, uh, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like trying to just have empathy for the players. So like small examples would be like there would be like guys that not a lot, but certain guys might change in and out of the lineup. And Rob and I would meet before practice and go through like what the lineup might be for the next game, and that would impact the training. And so before guys are warming up, I'm passing out the bibs, and I might be like, just ask Rob like, hey, like, have you talked with this guy about like I'm not gonna I'm gonna give him a color bib that he doesn't want, and
Right, so this
have
is the day before the game. they know the
Yeah,
lineup
yeah, yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah. They don't know it for sure, but they're smart guys. So I would
Yeah.
be like, hey Rob, like, can you make sure to touch base with him, like on the field just before I pass this out, right? Because Rob will have more of a big picture lens at training, watching everything, and I'm more like in the weeds, handing stuff out. So I'm like, I know as a player, like I have a funny story about this, but I know as a player getting yanked out of a lineup how that sucks, right? And
Yeah.
um, a conversation doesn't make it feel better, but it makes it so that you don't get it, have bad body language, and give that to the guy next to you, and then it's a thing, right? And so that's an example, but it just depends. Like Rob coached me, you know what I mean, and we've worked together previously for a long time. So like everyone has, I don't know, like the biggest thing is just trying to work together and yeah, like pick up on each other's strengths and weaknesses, and just we also have other guys that are very good at that. Like our staff's really good.
Hmm.
Brett's
So
being a little modest here. It's may become a little instinctual at this point. Um, but I think that Brad, more so than anyone, can get people to feel how important it is to wear the green and gold and be a catamount, where
Mm.
I can't as much as him. Um, and that those are, for a guy like Nash Barlow, who's from Vermont, or Carl Daly, and how powerful they are for our team, who get limited minutes. He keeps those guys dreaming that they just as passionately as they were when they were 8 years old, you know, hoping to play for Vermont someday.
Yeah. It's amazing. I have to like what you're creating there and Brad, that role, like again, it's not something that shows up on like a job description, but one of my great mentors in coaching was Jerry Yeagley from Indiana. And I remember I was in Bloomington when I was coaching at UVM and I used to do camps there and went over his house and you go to the basement of his house and he had this like wall of pictures, right? From the beginning when he started the program and he painted the field himself to the first teams to all the All-Americans to the national championships and whatever. And I was like, man, this right here, like this made you feel connected to the history of the program. And in this moment, I get to wear the shirt. And my job is to leave the shirt in a better place, right? And that is probably the most important thing I think you can get across to people, right? Leave the shirt in a better place than when you got it.
yeah, I have a. It's funny. I have a framed above my desk right now. My girlfriend made me a very good Christmas present. It's like it has a piece of the net from the national championship game, and then it has a handwritten thing that was the quote that I gave before the game in the game plan. It was, "You've already all left the jersey in a better place than you found it. Now leave it at the top of the mountain."
Yeah,
So I'm a big believer in that.
gives goosebumps. I want to throw out another word in coaching that doesn't get mentioned enough, but it's something that Jerry and I talk about on here a lot. And if I would say, people ask me like, of all the coaches we've had on here, world champs, Olympic champions, World Cup winners, whatever, what's a consistent theme of all of them? And they all talk about the word love. Love in coaching, love in leadership, love amongst your team. And um so I would ask you like how do you define and what is the role of love in your coaching? Brad, I'll let you go first and then Rob as well. And I know this is sort of a big thing to think about, but it's not it's I've done my USSFA license. The word love is never mentioned, right? They don't talk about this in coaching school. You get all the practice plans and all this, but when you talk to the best people in the world, what's the difference? It usually comes down to love.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I know for myself, I feel that with our players, with our staff, with the community, with the university, with the state, like, you know, there's not much I wouldn't do for all of it. I'd say too, like one little thing that is like kind of tells that story, like Maxi Kissel, like I think everyone kind of puts him in a bucket of like he's a bench player that comes on to get, and he's not that. Like he's a very, very good player. um, top player, and like everyone's like, oh, he must, how did you get him to play that role so well? Like he wasn't happy about the role he had, right? Like let's be real here.
You wouldn't
Um,
want a guy who's happy
exactly. And
coming
I
off the bench.
remember, I chatted with him the other day and was like, he was like, look, some days I was pissed. Some days I didn't want to be there. And I was like, well, like, what kept you going then? Because you kept scoring. Like, and he was like, I didn't want to let the captain down,
Mhm.
And that's what he said. He's like, specifically Adu, like one guy, he's like, I couldn't let him down.
Mhm.
And that's what it's all about.
Amen. Amen to that. Rob, what's the word love mean to you in coaching?
I think an example is returning back to campus in single digit temperature, going indoor, and immediately thinking about how do we defend our title. And then the next day, let's work on our ability of breaking down teams at the top of the box.
Mhm.
When you fall in love with it, something so much, you obsess about it and you get up, no matter the circumstances, and you do your job. You do your job.
Yeah. I think John Wooden, I'll let you finish. John Wooden once said he's like, I hope all my friends win one national championship and all my enemies win 10. And I think what he meant is that, oh my God, how do we top this? Oh my God, what do we do when everyone circles us on their calendar next year and says we're playing the national champs?
It's going to be the hardest year
Yeah.
this year, no matter what. And we looked at our players session one, day one of the spring, and said, um, every one of you left a legacy.
Yeah.
Now it's time um, to create a dynasty.
Hmm.
This program. Extension of that love, um, you know, love to teach specifically. Um, but I really look forward, in whatever Brad and myself and the rest of our staff and administrators can create here. I'm looking forward to creating such a great connection with our players and our players with our players that in 10, 15 years down the road, we'll all come back to Burlington,
Hmm.
just share, all the memories and all the mistakes and have a laugh about the tough times, what players' role were and the mistake, just the adversity. And um, I think we're creating this. But I want to make sure every player comes back. And our 89 team shares their love
Yeah.
for the program specifically. And I try to get our team in and around that 89 group as much as possible. And they were so successful and lost in the
Hmm.
roundabout against Rutgers. And they come back to Vermont every single year. There's a ton of love in that group. And but the people, the love is centered around uh, our people, and I think we have the right people, and we're committed to helping the right people develop into even better people.
Yeah. Amen to that. What do you, I mean, what do you say? Like I feel like the reason John Wooden always started his season by teaching people to tie their shoes was like because you're never too big to do the little things right. And that's you guys for next year, right? And so how do you obviously you had a lot of leadership who's graduating and moving on. So how do you find the right players to fit the culture you've built and then get the ones who are there to be hungrier and realize, congratulations, what you've now earned is the hardest season of your life.
Yeah. I think right away, at the beginning of this spring, for us, and what's really important is creating championship body language, and that helps you um, create a culture that people want to be around. It helps you um, develop better as a team because you're going to offer a catalyst-like environment that people are going to feed off and snowball into an avalanche in a positive direction. But also helps you be a better player. You're thinking about positive thoughts. You're carrying yourself that way. You're breathing. You're getting more oxygen to your brain. All these things. So for this past week, for me, it's been about that. Um, and Brad, what about you?
Um, I mean, I know talking with our current group, it's a lot of the messaging from me is like it's time for you to step out of the shadows and make us what you want to make us. Like you have to drive the ship now. And we did have a lot of really elite level players, elite people that had been with us for 4 or 5 years that are now gone. And
Mhm.
so those guys have passed down a lot of really, really good things, but they also weren't perfect. So now we're talking to the next group about like, how can you learn from them? But also like, we need to improve, we need to evolve. Like, I think a big mistake people make is that when they win, they think their process was perfect. So like we won, but like we made a lot of mistakes and we still got it done and we can now like try to take all the good and just keep getting better. And then I think with recruiting, we're pretty authentically ourselves. Like we don't try to recruit through materialistic stuff. Like we don't have the best of one particular thing. We just try to have the best people and the best community and the best environment. And we're pretty authentic about that. So like if people click with that, they do want to come here. And if they don't want to come here, that means they're not the right people for us, and we're totally fine with that. So
Mm.
um,
What are some of the
we
things
try,
you do
yeah,
to, what are some of
We bring them up in January. We bring them here to see if they can fly.
the,
This is what
this is what it's got to be
we're
like. Yeah.
looking. Brad does such a good job identifying intangible talent that's going to match the values of our program, and I think
Yeah.
that's where we're focused.
Yeah, it's the thing that doesn't show up on statistics or whatever, and you have to dig in with coaches and teachers and people that know them. Like, what is this kid going to do if they don't start? How are they going to behave? How do they treat people? Will they buy in? Will they make you better? That this is the part of coaching that I think it's easy to find the kid who's on the right team with all the right statistics, but they've never faced adversity before. What Hmm. What do you? So we're getting towards the end here. I'm just thinking about like Brad being a Vermont kid who growing up and in the new reality of college sports and NIL and now roster limits and things like that. One of the things that really hit me during that Final Four was, again, amongst all these texts I was getting and Facebook posts that I'm seeing and Instagram of alums who were there, what really, really hit home to me was the number of those kids who were so invested in the program they got on an airplane or a long car trip and went there, who, when I was there, never played a minute. Never played a minute. They
mm-hmm.
were a local kid who loved UVM and wanted to go there, and they never played in their whole time. Yet the program gave them something that 20 years later, that was the only place in the world they wanted to be. And I think that's harder to do today than it used to be. To give that local kid, you know, a shot who might never play. Um, just any thoughts on that? This is just something that hit me during the Final Four that hadn't really hit me before.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's absolutely true. Like I had one of the coolest parts for me about winning the whole thing was seeing all the like every almost every guy I played with or guys that when I was being recruited were moving on that I didn't get to play with or like just so many people that I knew were all there and I got to spend time with after the game. And some of them played 2 seasons and quit. Some of them were all Americans. Some of them got cut. It was exactly what you said, but they all felt involved because of the other people that made them feel involved. And that's the biggest thing. It's the most important, and like I think for us, it's something we can control to an extent. So it's what we try to focus on so much. There's a lot that's outside of our control with NCAA and all the moving pieces. But it just goes back to like we can control the people and we can control the environment that we try to create and make it positive. And a big thing we've talked about, Rob and I, is like how can we evolve the team, use more data, use more stats, like really elevate, but always have a team that any alum can look like any alum in the last 15, 20 years can look at our current team and still connect with like some of our values and how we're playing. Like we're not going to rely on talent to win. Like, we're going to be blue collar. We're going to tackle hard. We're going to win headers. Like we're going to block shots with our face. Like we're
Hmm.
going to be those guys, which when I was playing, we relied a lot on that and we didn't have some other things that we needed to win, but we're still going to like really lean into that so everyone from the past can still connect. They're not going to look at us and see a team that they don't recognize.
Yeah.
That's really important.
And that fits into the Vermont ethos, hardy, cold weather, which is cool. Like, and I mean, I think it's such a great thing. Like, when you get everyone bought into this idea of like, God, I hate playing against Vermont. Like, regardless of whether we win or lose, I hate that game because I know that it's just going to be miserable for us. Rob, thoughts on this? I mean, I see you smiling, and so like these are the things that have to make you proud of like, God, people hate to play us.
We're definitely north of the wall here, sure. Um, I don't know. I grew up with similar values. Um, I had, you know, we had alumni like Brad and 89 crew and Jesse explain how important it is to serve the program with a work ethic to be proud of and for our classes to be, from the past to identify with. And but I think that it brings together value. It brings together everyone has a talent that they can bring to the table. And I think of guys like Tom Cole and Nolan Jimmo, Todd Smith, um, uh, Tucker Perrin, an injured guy like Nick Lockerman this year, talked about his role. But, specifically where I first saw it in the program was with Tom Cole, who didn't play a minute for 4 years, but he was the guy who got every single starter to an individual session twice a week. He was the guy in that the starters came to the office and be like, I know Tom Cole has no chance of playing, but he's got to travel. He's the heart and soul of our team.
Mhm.
And these Rudy type personalities,
Yeah.
let's call it what it is. And we want every single player that we recruit to have a contributing role on the field. But it is impossible to meet everyone's expectations. That doesn't mean we want our top character guys, top people, the people that connect exactly to our identity. We don't want them to leave. We show value to them. We give them roles. We expect them to lead. We expect them to push the guys, for number two or number three in the depth chart and above, um, unconditionally. Like that is, and when they don't have a good session, we're talking about to them as much as we're talking about our first team players. So, you bring that, together into specifically these guys that came around the program. I saw those same faces that you heard stories from.
Hmm.
Um, I try to hug every single one of them after the game, and I think they did. Security was trying to uh, manage just a little bit, and it made me feel so proud that I was as close to doing my job as possible and seeing them back in that moment.
Well, as sticky as you probably were with the Gatorade, it probably wasn't the most pleasant hugs for them either, right?
Did
Um,
not care. The best.
he did not care. I mean, it's interesting you say that because I texted a few alums and said, "What do you want me to ask Rob?" One of the things that someone said, who's also a guy named DJ Johnson, right, who grew up in the community and his parents still go to the games and everything. He said, you know what's special about Rob is how he reaches out to the community. Like he shows everyone value, not just his players, but in the stands. They said like, he goes up in the press box before the game and he talks to people and he's just like making them all feel part of this. And where did that come from for you? Where'd you get that? Because not a lot, is that something that you had a mentor do and you're like, man, that's important? Because this is what, when they talk about Alex Ferguson, how he knew everyone, right? He just gave the eulogy at, the front desk woman's funeral a couple weeks ago, in England. And like this value, Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, that it didn't matter what your role is, whether you are the person, selling hot dogs, you add to the program.
Selfishly,
Yeah.
um, I miss home.
Yeah.
I'm from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. I miss it. Recently got to get back. But in the middle of our city is a town facility with two ice surfaces, a library, a pool, a bingo room, two soccer fields out back, baseball fields, tennis, skate park. It's a 5 minute walk from our house. When I went down there, that was my family. My mom could call the front desk and be like, "Have you seen Rob lately?" Oh yeah, he was just headed to the gym. He was eating some fries in the cafeteria, and that's what I grew up with. So I don't have any immediate family in Vermont. I wanted this to be around me, and so that's one. Two, I need coaches too. As a head coach, one of the most difficult things to be a head coach is it's the most lonely position.
Hmm.
And to to change that, I wanted to get together alumni to help us plan and strategize, where the direction this program could go. And we have five individuals that really helped us do that, and were instrumental in strategic planning.
Hmm.
And yeah, what is what makes you feel so, you know, unbeatable is that you have as many people around you who share the same passion and energy as you do. And I know that's here in Vermont.
Mm, that's amazing. Brad, last word for you, and then Rob, I'll give you the last word. Any advice to the coaches listening here? Sort of best things in your years that you've learned that you would give, so, as maybe someone coming up in coaching. Now you're an associate Division I head coach. What is your best piece of advice that you can leave our listeners with?
I would say it's important to be authentic, to be a real person. You don't need to be fake, right? And like in your relationships and the way you act with the team, you don't have to be a character. Like be yourself, is really important. And I'd say the other one that is helpful for me is like sometimes you're in a good mood, sometimes you're in a bad mood, sometimes life stuff's going on. There's so many variables to all of it, but the good days I have are when I show up to work, just like how can I help as many people today as possible, on our team, on our staff, like how can I give to the group and each guy. And when I have that mindset, like I end up doing a better job. I end up feeling better about myself at the end of the day. And I think it leads to elevating other people, which ultimately is your job as a coach.
You know what? I love that. This idea, right, as a coach, but also as an athlete, right? You get to ask two questions. What can I get or what can I give? And when you got a whole bunch of people asking what can I give, that's when it's all clicking for you. And so I'm so glad that you said that as a coach and whatever. Rob, since you are the head coach, you get the last word, man.
Um, listen, listening is just such a powerful tool to absorbing knowledge and creating connection and meaningful relationships and showing other people that they have a ton of value. We talked a lot about that here. I wish I did that a little bit earlier as a young coach. But you carry this ego as a player, but it's a lot different being a coach than it is being a player. Um, probably the last piece is that develop the thickness of your skin, and people are always going to doubt what you're going to do, and whether if it involves relocation or something not working out and having to find a different place, um, or sticking with a home, you know, and believing in your process, you know. Um, as long as it gets you up every day and you're excited to do it, don't let anyone tell you that what you're doing is not the right path. Um, and probably the last one is bring your people around it. Bring, when you have a family, surround them, around your team who have role models and all the other people. Like Jeff Schulman does this and
Hmm.
the family around the athletic department as an alum, of our hockey program. He exemplifies that. And he's down at Nick Carey, North Carolina, with his entire family eating dinner with us before the game. So,
Hmm.
for people with you.
Yeah, amazing. Well, both of you guys, again, congratulations and thank you for your time and your busy schedule and your parade preparation. Just really appreciate you being on. And I just have to say again, as a Vermont, well, I got my master's there, so sort of an alum, but a coach and someone with this long connection to the program and connection still to players who played there. What you did for UVM and the community and people like me is super special. So congrats and thanks for being on the way champions.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this. A lot of fun, and um, hopefully we'll stay in touch.
Wow, that was amazing. Again, thank you to Rob Dow. Thank you to Brad Cole and the whole UVM soccer family. Some really great stuff there about just when I take notes on these things and this idea of a player coming off the bench and even being angry and not wanting to let the captains down, or how do you shake the underdog out of the program, change it from me to we in this era of um, you know, self-centeredness, the role of love, vulnerability, so many topics there. So the great stuff. You just, you check them out, connect with Rob and Brad through UVM Soccer. Um, Man, so good. So honored that we get to have championship coaches taking the time out of their incredibly busy schedules to share the things that work. And this very consistent things that work across programs, love, vulnerability, championship behaviors, all this that are easy to talk about, but it's really hard to do. And so I appreciate their generosity. Appreciate Sprocket Sports. Appreciate our Patreon podcast champions. And appreciate all of you who listen and share this and spread the word. But I hope you took a lot of notes today. That was pretty awesome. And I hope you'll take what you learned and go out there and use your influence for good this week because it's never neutral. And the more aware of that influence you are, the more powerful it is. So go out there, change the world this week. We'll see you again next week, everyone.